Okay, Assalamu alaikum. Ramadan Mubarak Kareem. Hope you're all doing well. Sorry for the delay. I was a bit busy and preoccupied today, so I didn't get a chance to set things up as quickly as I would have liked. But here we are. Assalamu alaikum to everybody who's who's watching. Muhammad, Assalamu alaikum Muhammad, maybe something from you. Salam, I'll be watching the video later, but I would like to hear your thoughts on the Khidr discussion with David Wood. I saw that you commented on the video. Yeah, I didn't watch the whole of it. I watched about half of it. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll comment about that later maybe. Assalamu alaikum, how are you? And salam. All right, okay. Let's get my presentation on the way. Very shabby one today, unfortunately. Like I said, I didn't get much time. Share screen, share tab. Okay, so hopefully you can all see that. Let me change what are all the different views. There we go. That one's better, right? Okay. So today I wanted to speak a little about something which is quite important. I think anyway, a very important concept in the Quran, which I think is not really understood very well. The aql, and what does that actually mean? We use it all the time, but I think it's not seen as it should be. Anyway, just first of all, let me give a quick reminder. Remember the purpose of this stream. If anybody joining us for the first time or watching this later, the purpose is just to encourage you to contemplate the Quran yourself and to extract from it, what will benefit you the most. I'm what I'm doing here is just modeling some of my own contemplation, but the purpose of this stream is really just to encourage others to do the same. And if you have anything which you would like to share, please do feel free to come on and share. The link is in the chat. Okay, so the aql. So very common term. We always use it, especially those who are sort of like revisited traditional Islam. A lot of the ways we do that is by measuring up what is said against just pure reason, okay, intellect, right? Things which don't make much sense, which seem very, very bizarre, often are, okay? So, the phrase أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ, will you not use your reason? Will you not use your intellect? We often use that as a retort against others who are just blindly following, right? The Quran says, about those, who follow their forefathers. أَوَلَوْ كَانَ آبَاهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَهْتَدُونَ. They were going to follow what? Even if your forefathers لَا يَعْقِلُونَ شَيْئًا, they had no reason or intellect. لَا يَعْقِلُونَ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَهْتَدُونَ, and they had no guidance. You're still just going to follow. And it's more common in the Quran than أَفَلَا تُؤْمِنُونَ, right? Will you not have faith, right? That is more common. But I think the concept of aql is misused a little bit and misunderstood. But the way it's misused and misunderstood is still useful nevertheless, because it's sort of a lower form of what aql is. It's a lower form. So it's still useful, right? I mean, I've used it myself in videos in that kind of way, where we just mean, just reason and intellect. The way we use it in the modern world now, we talk about reason and intellect. أَفَلَا تَعْقِلُونَ. It's almost like this analytical IQ type reasoning and deduction process. Okay, that is not accurate. Okay, that is not accurate, but it's still useful because, of course, that brings you a long way. That brings you a long way, and you can't you can't correct everything in one go, right? When you're trying to even to explain to others, or even for yourself, you're not going to be able to explain, change everything or correct everything that you've misunderstood in one go, right? You need to have sort of like a footing sometimes, right? You have a footing in what you sort of know, you're okay with it, and you can start to correct other things, and then you can and then you can stand in those places which you've corrected, and then you correct where you were standing, if that makes sense. Okay, because you're trying to, fix things around you. Okay, you can't fix everything around you in one go. You can't fix the ground underneath your feet, right? You have to fix the ground in front of you, move there, and then you can fix the ground that you were standing on. Don't know if that makes sense or not, but that's one way to think about it. So, for example, I have the video. One of the videos I have, which is translation of Hassan al-Maliki, where he's given advice to the ex-Muslim youth, right? And in the beginning of that, I did a few edits in there. I put in what's his name? That Hitchens. I put in that guy Hitchens and Mufti Abu Layth. And one of the things that I put here from Mufti Abu Layth is, he was speaking about this idea that, what if reason leads you away from God, right? What if, your reasoning, the result of your reasoning is Islam is not true, okay, or God doesn't exist, right? And he brings forward, a number of quotes. He mentions a number of scholars who have said the same thing, that um, that those scholars have said that even those who have used their reason to the best of their abilities, right, and their reason brings them away from God, then yurja afuhu, his forgiveness is hoped for. Right now, I still hold by that, even if we take aql to mean something a little bit different. Okay, um, and in any case, this assumption is that the person is going to be um, punished for not believing in God, right? And which is not what I think is true anyway, right? People are not going to be punished simply for not believing in God, right? Especially nowadays, where there's a lot of where the triumphalism of science, okay, which pushes reason, that you should, that there's no reasonable, um, there's no reason to believe in God, right? You've got the Big Bang, you've got evolution, that's it, right? But in any case, okay, it's not, there's nothing to forgive in terms of somebody just not believing God exists, okay? There's nothing to forgive there. The forgiveness is needed for engage in evil deeds. Okay, but what do we really mean by reason? Okay, if we mean aql, then we run into certain problems, because the Quran constantly talks about how they went astray because they did not use their reason. Okay, meaning if you use your reason, you will be guided, right? You will be guided. Okay, there's this idea of somebody using their reason, and their reason leading them to misguidance. Okay, I'm not talking about, again, not belief or disbelief in God. Okay, um, that is not something which is sort of Quranically acceptable. Okay, the Quran constantly talks about how the aql is something which will bring you towards guidance, or bring you towards guidance. Okay, um, so my idea about this, okay, about why the sort of the understanding of aql is not as it should be, it comes all the way back to sort of like how Islam sort of developed early on. So I'm just rewinding a little bit before we get into the actual idea of what aql is. But early on, of course, in the beginning, the division of fiqh, which was basically the deen. Okay, fiqh was the deen. There was no, aqidah, and it wasn't differentiated in that kind of way. It was just the fuqaha in the beginning, really. Okay, um, the division of fiqh was along the lines of the fuqaha, who based their judgments on traditions, narrations, and sayings of Sahaba and Tabi'een, on the athar, okay, on what was left behind, okay, the athar, okay, the oh dear, I don't have a good translation in my head quickly there for that right now. But the athar, right? The traditions, Like if you're going along in the desert, right, and you see somebody's tracks in front of you, okay, you maybe are lost in the desert, okay, and then you see a car, car tracks. You think, okay, yeah, this car track, somebody has gone before us, okay, so this is the right way to go, okay, even though you don't know, maybe the person going, those car tracks will lead you to a car which is dead in the middle of the desert somewhere, and everybody in it died. Okay, but you're following the tracks. You're following the athar of those before you. That was Ahl al-Athar. That's how they to them that's what was really following the Deen, and the fiqh was to be gotten from what those previous had said, the Sahaba and the Tabi'een. Okay, you follow them. That's it. Okay, and then you had the fuqaha who would base their judgments on their own insights. Okay, their ra'i. It ended up being called opinion. Sort of, you see that it's called the people of opinion. Okay, or it would be called the people of reason later on. Okay, but Ahl ra'i, literally means the people of what they see. Okay, what they see, rather what they themselves see, rather than just following what others have saw before them. If that makes sense. Okay. Now later these terms, these two camps were sort of called the people of naql, of transmission, and the people of aql. Okay. Again, what could be put forward as intellect. Okay, but this shift happened later on. Okay, like I said in the beginning, they weren't termed as people of aql and people of naql. It was people of ahl al-athar and ahl al-ra'i. Okay, as we got, as later on, there was a huge influx of Western sciences, basically the Greek Western sciences. Okay, and for them, they had a conception of they used, when these things were translated, and in those texts they talk about intellect and using reason. Okay, that kept on being linked with aql, I think. Okay, and so the term aql absorbed some of this idea, some of this analytical, materialistic view of what aql is, that it is a mental intellectualism. Okay, and that's even a usage. That's how it came into the Arabic. Okay, I think, but in the actual original, even in the Latin and the Greek later, there isn't even the original meaning for aql. Okay, it's what end up they end up calling it the logos and things like this later for for Jesus and things like that. Anyway, point is that in the Quran, okay, aql and the sight it gives. So there's aql and it gives a certain sight. Okay, is not a property of the intellectual mind. It's not a property of the intellectual analytical mind. Okay, it is something of the heart. Something of the heart. Okay, so we have these verses. I don't know why the thing in this always comes out like this. I need to have a closer look at that. But you have, for example, this verse in the Quran, وَلَقَدْ ذَرَأْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرًا مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ. Okay, and we have certainly sort of created, but let's just go with the translation. Created for hell many of jinn and men. Okay, what kind of men and jinn are these? It says لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. Okay, they have hearts of which they do not understand. Okay, they have eyes with which they do not see. They have ears with which they do not hear. Okay, those are like livestock, rather they are more astray. It is they who are the heedless. Okay, so here we have this idea. Here we have the fiqh. Okay, this kind of understanding. It's something which is in the heart. Okay, it's a property of the heart. Okay, now here of course the word is not being used. The word being used is not aql. Okay, but we're going to come to that in the next one. But it's just another thing to show you that the understanding of fiqh, right, of real understanding, okay, the understanding which you need to save you from hell, okay, it is something which is in the heart. Okay, it's not something of the analytical mind as much. Okay, but in the next verse, we see how aql is a property of the heart and it bestows sight. Okay, so here we have أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ. Will they not travel through the earth? أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فَتَكُونَ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ يَعْقِلُونَ بِهَا. So that perhaps they might have hearts with which to reason. يعقلون بها. Okay, so reason is something in the heart. Okay, قلوب يعقلون بها أو آذان يسمعون بها فإنها لا تعمل أبصار, for true, when it says hearts with which to reason and ears with which to hear. For indeed it is not the eyes that are blind, but blind are the hearts which are within the breasts. Okay, فإنها لا تعمل أبصار ولكن تعمل القلوب التي في الصدور. How did they become blind? Okay, by not being able to have this sight which is given by aql. Okay, or really, a person cannot do aql, and I'm using that specifically. A person cannot do aql. Okay, their hearts cannot do it because they can't see. Their hearts have become blind. They can't see what to aqil, okay, what to reason together. All right. Now, I had to put this together quickly, so I don't really have. This isn't very well organized, I'm sorry to say, but what I'm going to put here is just a few snippets from. I think Martin Nings speaks about this very well. Okay, in terms of what real intellect, the intellect which we're talking, the real aql, what does it mean? Okay, so here he quotes here about the verse. Okay, so I'm just going to read the snippet out. In speaking of the majority, the Qur'an says, "It is not the eyes that are blind, but the hearts." Okay, this shows, and it would be strange if it were otherwise, that the Qur'anic perspective agrees with that of the whole ancient world, both East and West, in attributing vision to the heart, and in using this word to indicate not only the bodily organ of that name, but also what the corporeal center gives access to, namely the center of the soul, which itself is the gateway to a higher heart, okay, namely the spirit. Thus, heart is often to be found as a synonym for intellect, okay, not in the sense in which this word is misused today, but in the full sense of the Latin intellectus, okay, that is the faculty which perceives the transcendent, okay, the faculty which perceives the transcendent. Now I'm gonna go through a few more snippets over here, and then I'll probably just give a few more remarks. I'm going to talk about the same topic probably next time, where I can hopefully by then I'll have it better arranged, and I can mention a few more things about that. Here's another snippet about the same topic. In all religions, there is a doctrine of three worlds: the world of the spirit, the soul, and the body. Okay, and the soul that would be in the Quran, the nafs. Okay, the nafs, it's what connects the spirit to the body. Okay, the soul and the body are psychic, okay, and corporeal. Together make up what is commonly called this world. Okay, the world of the spirit, the ruh, whose gateway is the heart, altogether transcends this world, being beyond the reach of any human faculty. Okay, so the human faculty which is enthroned in the heart and which is the means of connection between the soul and the spirit, as we have seen, what our ancestors called intellect. Okay, and I think this leads me to what I would like to say at the end. The little addition which I have, because the word itself, the Arabic word itself, aql, okay, it means to tie. Okay, it means to tie things together. Okay, to tie things together. It's like the iqal for the camel. When you hobble a camel, okay, you tie its 2 feet together. Okay, it's that sort of tying things together. Okay, and you can see the idea of that when you reason things. When you're trying to reason certain things, you're putting 2 and 2 together, right? We say that, right? Put 2 and 2 together. That's reasoning. Okay, put this with this, tie them together. Okay, that's aql. Okay, but the idea of aql in the Quran is definitely not. We're not talking about just the tying together of sort of like an IQ test, right? In the analytical intelligence idea, rather in, as Martin Link says here, in the old idea of intellect as something which perceives the transcendent. And what I would say is something which perceives the transcendent and ties it in with the world that we're in. Okay, so tying these two things together. So a person who has aql, okay, who can do proper aql, it's like sort of like that question that was asked to an atheist, right? They asked him, okay, if um, incest between a brother and a sister, right, where there's no chance of pregnancy, there's no this, the question was asked, taking away all of these um, mundane reasons why it shouldn't be allowed, okay, and is that okay? Is it allowed? And he would just say yes, and based on sort of like intellect, right? Like worldly intellect, that's a fine answer, okay. But we all of us, all people, all people, even the person himself, would shriek at that internally because we do have an aql. We have an aql which ties transcendent truths, okay, morality with things of this world, with judgments in this world, with seeing things in this world. Um, Okay, there's that link. It ties these things together. It's not just putting numbers together in this world. Okay, there are sort of like higher numbers that we tie with this world as well. Okay, higher realities. Now, this came to Martin's got it originally from lectures with C.S. Lewis. Okay, C.S. Lewis talked about this a lot. He had some lectures about that. So I'm just going to read something over here. So he recalled, he being Martin, has recalled for me, this person was writing this about him, one of Lewis's very popular lectures that he attended, saying, "I can see him now and hear him now," in which Lewis had explained to his audience that the Middle Ages were dominated in their conception of the human soul and its faculties by what Bothemus laid down in Book 5 of his Consolation of Philosophy. The faculties, he said, are arranged in a hierarchy. First of all, beginning with the highest, there is intellectus, okay? Then ratio, then imagination, okay, and then sensus, okay. So you've got this hierarchy of the faculties of the human being. There's the intellect, and that's what this higher understanding of intellect, okay, is what would be aql, okay. Unfortunately, now we think of it in terms of this second stage here, which is a ratio, just rationality, okay, just reason and rationality, okay. Then after that, you've got a sense of imagination, okay, and then there's just the physical touch senses. So Lewis had stressed in that lecture, says Lings, that the intellect is not for things of this world, okay, and I would say it's for things of the higher world, higher transcendent realities, and being able to tie them to things in this world, okay. Um, So anyway, he goes on here to mention a few other things. The transcendent term of the election strictly, divine prerogative. Okay, so again, so it's the idea of having it in the world of the divine. Okay, you can read that later if you want. Okay, here's another idea about that when you're talking about thought, just pure thought. Okay, thought, which includes the reason, imagination, and memory, is in itself a purely human faculty, but through the virtual continuity which exists between the soul and the spirit, thought may be penetrated. Our thought, of things of the soul may be penetrated in a certain measure by the light of the intellect. Okay, by intellect. Okay. Then he talks some more about that. Again, I'm sorry that these snippets are not arranged in any particular order. And like I said, we'll speak about this topic another time as well, probably. Here again, the soul is of this world, whereas the spirit is not. Okay, but since there was at first a relative continuity between the soul and the spirit, there is a certain part of the psychic substance, that which lies at the soul's uppermost boundary, nearest the heart. Okay, which is in one sense not of this world, since its function is to receive from the intellect the light of the spirit. Okay. Okay, and here's another and the idea in the intellect is universally recognized as being enthroned in the heart. Okay, again, the aql is in the qalb. Okay, and what is meant by heart in the inner aspects of the different religions, okay, is not the center of the body, but it's the center of the soul. Okay, the heart is the center of the psychic substance. Okay, so you've all heard, mention of the eye of the heart, right? The eye of the heart. Okay, and that eye, only that eye, can perceive metaphysical truth directly. Okay, and to be able to tie two things together, you have to be able to see them. Okay, if you can only see the things of this world, okay, and you don't have that inner sort of like your heart is completely blind to higher transcendent realities, you won't be able to tie those higher transcendent realities to the things of this world. Okay, so here again, it's a similar sort of thing. In the Dark Ages, students were taught that the faculties are arranged in a hierarchy, of which the summit is intellect, in so much as it is concerned with the transcendent realities, whereas reason, which ranks as a subordinate second to it, is limited to this world. Since the Enlightenment, however, the intellect, in its original sense, has been withdrawn from the attention of students. But the word itself, brought down from its supernatural level, has been retained in virtue of its high sounding effect. Okay, intellect sounds, has a very, high sounding effect. In particular, its much used adjective has now taken on the sense of mentally active. Okay, so when something being intellectual, it just really means mentally active. Okay, and since much of the activity is concerned with questioning the existence of the transcendent, many of so-called intellectuals are at the opposite pole from true intellectuality. All right, and so that's why you have it now. You can have somebody who is a complete intellectual, but has no aql in the Quranic sense of the word, because these two things have the two meanings have sort of diverged. Okay, the confusion is so widespread that it would seem a great paradox, and yet it would be true to say that religious faith of all that is now officially recognized as a human possibility comes nearest to intellectual awareness, though it must be admitted that the two do not coincide unless we understand faith in its higher sense of certitude. Okay, so just a little conclusion I have over here. So if you are a person of aql, you are able to tie and relate spiritual truths to things of this world. Okay, to things of this world. All right, and so coming back to that first question, the idea of can somebody a person can person use their aql and still end up in hellfire? Can somebody use their reason and still end up misguided, not disbelieving in God, like I emphasized at the beginning? Okay, rather end up engaging in really immoral behavior. Okay, no, because aql would be something which can tie that together. And so we have these two verses in the Quran. وَقَالُوا, the people of hell, and they will say, وَقَالُوا لَوْ كُنَّا نَسْمَعُ أَوْ نَعْقِلُ مَا كُنَّا في أصحاب السعير. Okay, if only we had been listening or reasoning, if only we had listened. Okay, of course here, listen to those of guidance, right? You have to make sure you even take some aql to understand who to listen to. Okay, but if we had listened or aql or used the aql, we would not be among the companions of the blaze. And again, how do we know that? It's all talking about sins, not beliefs. Next verse, and they will admit their sins. فاعترفوا بذنبهم. Okay, فسحقا لأصحاب السعير. Okay, so alienation for the companions of the fire. Okay, so that's as much as I have now. I'm sorry that it was I don't know if it seemed very disjointed or not. Hopefully, I will try to make it, more. I'll try to explain a bit better next time, because I want to go into also the difference between aql and fu'ad in the Quran. Okay, difference between aql and fu'ad. Because it's fu'ad, which I think it means mind, basically, like the functioning aspects of the brain. That's fu'ad. Okay, whereas as we said, the aql, okay, that is something which is in the heart. All right, okay, so that's about it. I don't see much going on in the chat. Assalamu alaikum. Kirito game. I like that. Sounding very Japanese there. All right, I don't have anybody backstage, so I don't know how many people are actually listening right now. For some reason, I can't see the number of participants. Maybe I need to stop sharing my screen and I'll be able to see it. Or zoom out. Let's try that. Ah, yeah, there we go. 9 people in attendance. Okay, so anybody have something something they'd like to share? Please feel free to come on the stream. What's it called? The link is pinned at the top of the chat. If not, then of course, no pressure or anything, and we'll just close this stream in about 5 minutes or so. 5 minutes or so, if nobody would like to come on. Assalamu alaikum, Maya. Hope you're well. In the meantime, I suppose I can talk about what Ahmed here asked about. So he's asking about the David Wood and Khalil Adnani had a wonderful discussion. Right? They did have a very good discussion. It just shows you that if David Wood can be incredibly vicious. He can, seeing what he did when he was approached by the jahl of certain other YouTubers. Okay, and you saw how he behaved then. Okay, tearing up the Qur'an, eating it, and doing things like this, and it just shows you. I mean, there's a saying of Imam Shafi'i, which is not a good saying. I even tried it for a while. It just doesn't work. Okay, you cannot meet jahl with jahl. Okay, you cannot meet jahl with jahl. But Imam Shafi'i has these verses says, لا يجهلن علينا أحد فنجهل جهلا فوق جهل الجاهلية. Right? Let nobody, act in jahl towards us. Otherwise, we will act in jahl towards him in a jahl which is worse than the people of Jahiliyyah, which is sort of like saying, here, taste your own medicine, put you in your place, that sort of thing. But it doesn't work. Okay, all you do is feed the other person's jahl. Okay, but when you're calm, you maintain hilm. Okay, then you're helping the other person who is in a state of jahl to go down to a state of hilm. And that's what I saw when with David Wood. I mean, he was very courteous, very from what I saw with Khalil Adnani, right? Because Khalil Adnani was not acting like a buffoon, right? They were just discussing things very nicely and calmly. So I think that was one of the best takeaways of that, just to show that you can have cordial interactions. Okay, so there's that. But in terms of the idea of that Isa was not crucified, I just don't see it. I mean, I know I can appreciate the arguments for it, but a lot of the time they look to me like you're saying that Allah is pulling one over us, sort of like a lawyer, right? So he's like giving double speech. Okay, so the verse which says, they did not kill him, that the Jews boast, we killed Isa, the son of Mary, Rasulullah, and then the Quran corrects that. He's saying, ما صلبوهم ما قتلوه ما صلبوه ولكن شبه لهم. Okay, and people latch on, all of these arguments latch on to the they did not kill him, nor did they think. Well, the verse is not it's not like this misdirection. That's like Allah says, "Oh, I didn't say that they didn't kill him. I mean, it's like saying that the verse is saying, "Oh, I didn't actually say that they didn't, that he wasn't dead. I'm just saying that they didn't kill him." I mean, that's not direct speech. You know what I mean? It's sort of like I said to one person once. It's like Aladdin saying, "Oh, I didn't actually wish to get out of the cave." Right? Okay, I didn't actually say, that's not exactly what I said. I said they didn't kill him. They didn't crucify him. I wasn't denying that he died or crucifixion. Anyway, that sort of thing. So it doesn't seem that way. And secondly, nobody says, the Jews themselves, they don't actually, when they boast, we killed him, they're not actually boasting that they killed him themselves. Okay, none of the Jews actually thought, or they're not. That's not their claim. Their claim, when they say we killed him, isn't saying that we directly crucified him, we directly killed him. Of course not. Okay, both the Christians, the Romans, and the Jews, they all know there was the Romans who did the actual killing. Okay, so for then the Quran to say, to come out and deny that they're not saying that. So the denial is meaningless. The denial is literally meaningless, right? And they're not saying that we killed him, really. Okay, so that's one thing. And the second thing is, which a point which is rarely brought up, and there was another one that's all just slipping my mind right now, but there was a pretty strong point as well, but tired, so I don't remember it. But the other point is that the Quran blames the Jews in the time of the Prophet, okay, for killing prophets, right? They are blamed for that, even though they never killed anybody, right? So the Quran says, فِلِمَ تَقْتُلُونَ أَنْبِيَاءَ اللَّهِ مِنْ قَبْلٍ كُنْتُمْ صَادِقِينَ. Okay, addressing the Jews in the time of the Prophet. Why then did you kill the prophets before if you are truthful? Well, they didn't kill them, but the point is that they were defending. They are defending the killing of those prophets. They are one with those who killed the prophets. Okay, those prophets. They are saying that the killing of those prophets was justified, and so they are being blamed together with them. Okay, they are being blamed together with them. So even though they didn't kill them directly, and it was their forefathers who killed those prophets, right? It was their forefathers who killed those prophets. God is saying that they killed them. Okay, that they killed those prophets. Okay, why? Because they defended the action. Okay, which is why you should never defend the murder and people doing murder, like the people who defend, for example, the killing of Hussein or the family of the Prophet. Okay, in defending that, you're standing with them. Okay, and you are taken. You're almost as culpable. Okay, because if you're defending it, what does that mean? That means if you were there, you would have done it. Right? If you're defending that means if you were there, you would have done it. So I don't find those arguments convincing. Okay. In the end, we don't know what happened. Okay. It just says shubbiha lahum. Okay. Of course, the arguments that it was Allah who shubbiha lahum is not true. Okay. The Quran doesn't say that. It just says that shubbiha lahum. Okay. But you know what? To be honest, there's so many things. And Rashid, I'm going to bring you on now anyway. Okay. These arguments of Isa ibn Maryam, did he die, did he not? There are so many flying around, right? That sometimes I just forget what I actually think about it. Right? It's like, okay, let me try to remember what conclusions I came to myself, right? Because you hear over here, I've got a couple of friends, close friends who are very much so into. They believe in the return of Isa, right? So they're always looking into this idea, right? And so they we speak about this every once in a while, and they bring forth different theories and stuff. So far, I think Ali Atai on Blogging Theology, where he showed that's maybe the best that I've seen. Khalil Adnani says that's very weak because it essentially denies. It's in the end, it's denying that anybody was crucified, which I think that's a bit unfair. But anyway, Assalamu alaikum, Rashid. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm fine. I always watch the stream later, or sometimes I listen in, but I have never really joined. So this is my first time. And
Hmm.
yeah, and first of all, thank you so much for the channel. Personally, I find it extremely insightful. And so I have a comment related to your presentation.
Hmm.
But maybe just before that, I can start with the discussion that with what you've just mentioned a few moments ago about
Yeah, go
the
ahead.
the debates on what happened to Jesus, whether he was crucified or not. And
Hmm.
yeah, I think like most people, I have also been interested in lots sorts of discussions, and over time, I have come to realize that there is a value in not being fully immersed in those discussions, because at the end of the
Hmm.
day, I think it demands a certain level of it demands too much energy, and
Hmm.
yet it's I mean, I would say there are maybe more, I would say, like low hanging fruits. I think
Hmm.
spiritually, there are more low hanging fruits that people can access, and often focusing on this. I guess these are the sort of interesting discussions, very mysterious like, and they sort
Yeah,
of
yeah,
generate
exactly.
a lot of interest.
Hmm.
Yet I think there are easier ways of connecting with God. But anyway, that's not why I'm joining.
Yeah, yeah. I
Um,
mean, let me just
mhm,
say about that. I mean, I
yeah,
completely agree because, um, that it's just I don't think that it can be resolved. That I think that we're just not going to have enough solid information about it, right? I
yeah,
mean, people read those verses all the time. They all just sort of skip by the the verse says وإن الذين اختلفوا فيه في شك لفي شك منه ما لهم به من علم إلا اتباع الظن, right?
yeah,
And so there's that section in the middle which says, and those who differ about him, okay, regarding it, who differ in him, لفي شك منه, they are in doubt on it. And, I'm, in doubt of it. وما لهم به من علم, they have no real certain knowledge about it, except, following of conjecture. So a lot of this, it just seems conjecture, right?
yeah,
And then, the next thing is, well, we just need to hold on, وما قتلوه يقينا, right? And what's certain, he was not killed, right? He was not killed. ما قتلوه يقينا. But it's that section where, they did not kill him of a certainly. Oh, it's
mm,
just saying that the Jews didn't do it. And that's not what the Jews were saying anyway. That's my point about that, right? Then
yeah,
رفعه الله إليه. But the reason why people are so some Muslims are so fixed on it is because, of course, eschatology, end of
yeah,
times, that Jesus is going to come back, etc., etc. Um, you know, so there's that aspect as well, right? And
yeah,
people love to try to be prophets. People love to, yeah, people love to try to predict what's going to, how the world is going to
yeah,
end, and what's going to happen, and then the next superpower is going to be Israel, and then this, and then the Dajjal will appear, and then people want to know about all of this. So it's very exciting,
yeah,
right, for people.
yeah,
Exactly, gets the blood pumping, right?
yeah, yeah.
All right.
Yeah, very
Anyway,
true.
yes, what were you going to
Yeah,
say?
yeah. Yeah. So back to the presentation that you just made.
Mm,
The link between intellect and reason.
mm.
I really like the way you've broken down. Just out of curiosity, was it a particular book that you were quoting from, or was it a collection of materials from different
It was a,
sources?
it was a number of different books, because I've read pretty much all of Martin Ling's books, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when I started to re-examine this, I remembered him speaking about this, okay, in a number of his books.
Mm,
Which book exactly was it? Hold on. There are a number of them. If you can just put in, Martin Ling's an Intellect. All right,
okay.
you'll find a few of these quotes of him. But I think it was in. Let me just open up and see if it will. If it's saved exactly which one it was. Hold on. I think it wasn't this one. I think it's the 11th hour. His book called the 11th hour. That I pulled out a few quotes from that one,
Mm-hmm.
and also from trying to search Intellect. Mentions it in a number of places. So yeah, that was from the. Some of them were from the 11th hour. His book called the
Mm-hmm.
11th hour. Another one was from his book about Sufism. What is Sufism?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if you don't know anything, yeah, he was a great Sufi,
Okay.
Martin Lings. He was writing a lot of tasawwuf.
Okay.
And I think maybe in one of his books, I think he talked about also in what the book called Ancient Beliefs and Modern Superstitions. I
Mm.
think he spoke a little bit in that one as well.
Okay.
Um,
No,
yeah.
yeah. No, it's yeah. I was just curious because for me it provides a way to reconcile one of the major observations of the present. I think maybe the Western world. So originally, I am a Kenyan, and I recently moved to Germany for work purposes. And one of the things that hit me when at least when I lived my first year in these parts of the world is how I could see that what I would say intellectual the amount of intellectual activity is sort of closely tied to disbelief in God, and I'm saying intellectual activity in quotes because from the presentation, I think it's very clear that the intellectual, that what you're calling intellect now is actually the sort of the second level.
Yeah.
The first level is now I think what was called intellectors. So
Yeah.
that higher purpose that is closely linked to the heart. So for me, I thought it was very interesting because then I was always wondering why is it that it appears like the more people are sort of the more they claim to be rational, the more it seems to take away from it seems to take them away from a belief in God, and
Yeah.
then and so actually seeing that intellect that is not that actually what they are practicing, what they are calling reason, is not really the highest level of intellect. I think it's very very insightful for me, and I guess it also I don't know. I guess as human beings, we always we because we live in this world where maybe rationality is something that is that is uh, that is claimed to be a good thing. Sometimes there is a clash between what we feel deep in our hearts and the demands of the rational world, if I can put it like that. And
Yeah.
some and because I remember when the first time I encountered at least I didn't know growing up. I didn't know. So in Kenya, like 30% of the population are Muslims, mostly Sunni Muslims, and there is almost no. Um, I was not exposed to any form of any form of a different way of looking at Islam other than the Sunni Islam way. And so the first time that I actually knew about a group of Muslims who place a primary focus on the Quran was a referral by someone who referred me to the Quran-centric YouTube channel. I think it was run by Brother Joseph.
Yeah. Joseph Sam.
Yes, and then so for me it was such an eye opener, and then a few obviously you know this, that a few weeks or a few months ago, I think he became disillusioned, and while this is not really I don't really want to speak about him. I guess I could almost feel a similar journey for me as well, where inside like my heart, I feel like there is this other way of looking at things.
Mm.
But also when I try to analyze, when I try to use reason to look at some of the things in the world,
Mm.
then it's sort of there is a minor clash between these two things, and sometimes it's not very
Mm.
easy to reconcile them. And so you sort of become disillusioned and a little bit confused, and you feel uh, like you're somehow lost, and so retracing tracing back your steps, and again going back to the roots, going
Yeah.
back to the basics. I guess it's one of the things that always works, at least for me. And
Yeah,
so
yeah, definitely.
so
You
yeah,
go back to your anchors,
yeah.
right? The basic things. You know, the thing that you find is that the 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 strange thing is that you get, you know, you go into these religious discussions and learning and this and this and this, and you learn and you go, and you know you know, you end up coming back to this, just the normal basics, right? You end up finding yourself back at the start to the things which you would have known from the start without looking, right? You know, that you know that and religion is about basically being a human being, right?
Yeah.
Like Hassan Maliki says, right? Kun insan and kun musliman. You know,
Mm,
be a real insan, and you'll be a Muslim,
yeah.
right? You end up coming back and seeing that in the end, it's all about the simple basic things, and in those simple basic things, there's a lot of depth. There's a
Mm,
lot of depth. But yes, sorry, I cut you
yeah.
off. I think.
No. Yeah. So actually had two questions related to that, and the first one is in several places in the Quran. It says, and I'll use the English translation, is that God guides whom He wills, and He sends astray those that He wills. In some other parts, it says that God has placed a seal on their hearts, when He talks about the kafirun. And
Mm,
based on those verses, so this intellect, is it something that, so at is it something that God gives all human beings from the beginning, and then it's based on how you use it, then God can either seal it or can lead you astray, or
mm,
are there, I don't know. It's also linked to the whole discussion about
yeah.
predestination, and so that's the first question. And then the second question is that it's also in the Quran says in several parts that those who believe and do righteous deeds, maybe are the successful ones, or those are the ones that will go to Jannah. And it's also linked to to what you have several times referred to in the previous streams, about actions being actually what, like deeds. So deeds are
Mm,
what will take people to Jannah, and not necessarily what they believe in.
mm,
But oftentimes we see in the Quran that God says those who believe and do righteous deeds. So is it
mm,
that the deeds have to be linked to the belief, or how do you look at those verses? Yeah.
mm.
So
You know, there's, I think it was there was somebody who actually asked me specifically about the verse in Surah Al-Anbiya. You know, أمتكم أمة واحدة وأن ربكم فاعبدون أمتكم. Let me just bring it out so I can. أمة. 1 second. وحرام. There it is. So somebody recently asked me about this verse. with الإمام الشيطاني فمن يعمل من الصالحات وهو مؤمن فلا كفران لسعيه وإنا له كاتبون. Right. So whoever does of the salihat and he has faith, he's a mu'min. Okay. فلا كفران لسعيه, then his sa'i, his trying, is not going to be rejected, or there'll be no ingratitude towards it. وَإِنَّا لَهُ لَكَاتِبُونَ, and we will be writing. And now some other ones, verses which like this, and people look at it and say, hey, these seem to make it clear that you have to be, a mu'min for that. Okay, that you have to be. Well, so the way to look at these, like this one, for example, this specific one, which is in Surah Anbiya, okay, it's talking about those in the previous verses, of course. So it's talking about, it was talking about all of the prophets, okay, and it was talking about the what's called the favors God gave to different prophets. Okay, and then at the end of that long sort of exposition, prophet after prophet, Yunus and Maryam and everybody. Okay, then it says, "Inna hadhihi ummatukum ummatun wahidatun wa ana rabbukum fa'budun." Right, this ummah of yours is just one ummah. It's one ummah, and I am your Lord. So be in ibadah to me. Then the next verse says, فَتَقَطَّعُوا وَتَقَطَّعُوا أَمْرَهُم بَيْنَهُم كُلٌّ إِلَيْنَا رَاجِعُونَ. Okay, so this ummah, this one ummah, following all of these different prophets, all of these different prophets, okay, it got divided up, it got cut up, okay, got cut up, right? So there are those who are following this prophet and having faith in him, and those who are following this prophet and having faith in this, and those following this prophet, okay. So the next verse about that is just talking about each of these different faith groups, okay. So long as they have faith, okay, they don't have to have faith in all of them, okay, in that kind of way. As long as they have faith, okay, then it's and they do good deeds, then those deeds will be written for them and not be rejected. Okay, now that's not the same as saying that they're all going to be saved. It doesn't say that either. It just says that their good deeds will be written for them. Okay, will be written for them. In a general way, most of the verses we say, like in the ladina amanu wa amilu salihat, right? I think these kind of verses are the one you're talking about, right? Okay, these verses are given as statements of fact, basically. Okay, it's saying in the ladina amanu wa amilu salihat lahum jannat. Okay, those who have faith and do righteous deeds. Okay, what are they going to have? What are they going to have? They will have Jannah. Okay, they're not conditional statements. They're not saying Jannah is for only those who have faith and do good deeds. Okay, it's not saying that way around. Okay, it's just saying where are they going to be? If I ask you, in الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات, where are they going to be? What are they going to have? They're going to have Jannah.
Jannah. Okay.
They're going to have Jannah. Okay, that's basically all it comes down to. These verses. Second way to understand that is when it says الذين آمنوا, it's talking about the faith group of the Muslims, basically. Okay, so when, like in the other verses, when it says in الذين آمنوا والنصارى واليهود والصابئين, okay, then it says من آمن بالله واليوم الآخر. So الذين آمنوا in this verse means who? It means the Muslims. Okay, it means the followers of Muhammad. Okay, it's like a title for the followers of Muhammad. In the Quran, Allah doesn't say the Muslims. Okay, it doesn't say truly the Muslims are in Jannah. Does it say that? Okay,
No.
does it say Muslims are in Jannah? It doesn't say Muslims are in Jannah. Okay, it's so what it says, you can substitute the phrase in the ladina amanu, says substitute for Muslims who do good deeds will be in Jannah. Okay, in the ladina amanu وعملوا الصالحات. الذين آمنوا just means the Muslims, that faith group. Okay, that's another way to look at it, because that's how most of the Quran is. يا أيها الذين آمنوا, يا أيها الذين آمنوا, even يا أيها الذين آمنوا آمنوا, right? Or you who believe, or you have faith, have faith. No, it basically means you, or يا أيها الذين آمنوا, this faith group which is around this community, around the Prophet Muhammad. Okay, now have faith, have real faith. Okay. Okay, it's like a label for them. Okay, and another way to understand is because look, in this world, the reason why faith is important, it is important. Okay, it's because through faith you are able to do good. But if you have zero faith, imagine I'm talking about just faith. Okay,
Mhm. Mhm.
the term, for example, الذين آمنوا بالله, okay, it only comes up 14 times in the whole Quran, and most of the
Mm.
times it's not a command. Okay, and it doesn't say that they're going to be rewarded or this or that. Okay, if you just search, you just put into a search. Okay,
Mhm.
amanu billah, put in just
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
Okay, it's very few verses like that. Okay, most of the time الذين آمنوا is general. Okay, الذي, it doesn't say الذين آمنوا, it doesn't say إن الذين آمنوا بالله وعملوا
Mm.
الصالحات. It
Mm.
says
Mm.
إن الذين آمنوا. Okay,
Amanu. Yeah.
those who
Yeah.
have faith. Okay, just faith. It's kept open, sort of kept open. The reason why, and so again, we're talking about another sort of level of understanding this, because faith. Okay, you can't do good deeds without some degree of faith, some degree of hope in the future, some degree of faith that the good is good for its own sake, even. Okay,
Mm.
imagine
Mm.
somebody who has absolutely no faith in the future. He doesn't think that anything will ever get any better. He doesn't think that giving charity will benefit the person, will be good for him. So why give? He's going to die and this, and there's having absolutely no faith or hope, or just being completely hopeless and in despair, and no looking to the future. What would make you do a good deed? If you're in that sort of condition, why would you ever do anything good to anybody? Why would you help anybody? Why would you give charity? You're not going to do anything. Okay, um, you need to have anybody who does some amount of good deeds. Okay, anything which is altruistic, which is not for his own self. Okay, he has to have a bit of faith in doing that. Okay, all
Mm.
right,
Okay.
unless
So
it's
this so this faith is not necessarily faith in God.
no, it can just be faith in, it can be faith in just goodness. Okay, a faith that the good is the good, doing good is goodness enough for its own sake. Okay, um, or faith in just or more defined. So that's like a very undefined kind of faith. Okay, there's somebody who just that does a good deed because it's worth doing. Okay, that kind of faith. That's a kind of belief that doing a good deed, it's worth doing for its own sake. Okay, that's not a belief in any specific thing. Okay, but there's a faith that that there is goodness and there is badness, that there's good and there's evil. Okay, that you believe that there's these two things. That you have a faith that there is morality. Okay, and so from that you will do the moral thing. Okay, because you believe there is a morality. Right? You have that faith that there is a morality. Okay, and you have that doing that will ultimately be for the best. Okay, you have that hope in the future, that belief in the future. Ultimately, it's a good thing to do. Okay, it's a good thing to do, and even if you don't get anything bad back for it. Okay, imagine, for example, if you were in the world where um, have you ever seen like these movies which are like of the future, like these
Yeah.
movies or
Yeah.
television series about the distant
Mm.
future, right? Where it's
Yeah.
very sort of dystopic,
Yeah.
where everybody's just out for themselves because
Mm.
that's how it
Mm.
would be. Nobody believes in God. Imagine if you're in that place, okay, and people steal from you one day, another day, another day, another day. People are stealing for you your whole life. Okay, your whole life people are doing this. Okay,
Yeah.
um, and the only way that in that sort of situation that will keep you from you yourself not descending into that is by having some amount of faith. Okay,
Yeah. True.
but otherwise you're just going to say, okay, look, what's this? I'm the only one who's not stealing. Yeah, everybody's stealing from me and oppressing me and doing this, and I'm doing good to everybody else, and nobody does any good back to me. Okay, you won't be able to keep that up. Okay, you can't do that. You can't be of the people who amilus salihat, that be a regular feature of your life if you don't have some amount of faith in some way. Okay,
Mm.
then there are
Mm.
others who have a more defined faith. They have this faith in the universe, right? They believe the universe, okay,
Mm.
bring out goodness into the world, okay, and the universe will give you goodness back. That's
Mm.
faith,
Mm. Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
or a belief in karma, okay,
Mm.
that
Mm.
you reap what you sow. That ultimately, when I do a good deed, it will come back to me some way or somehow. Okay, this person has this faith that some way somehow the goodness will not be lost. goodness which I do will not be lost. And that's a verse in the Quran. إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُضِيعُ أَجْرَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ أَجْرَ الْمُحْسِنِينَ, sorry. Okay, God does not let to go the reward of those who do good. Okay, it's not going to go lost. It never goes lost. Okay, it's there. It's out there somewhere. Okay, and it will come back to you. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's many ways to look at this, but ultimately, when you ask the question, okay, of where does salvation lie? Okay, who enters Jannah? Okay, and by what means do they enter Jannah? Okay, you're asking that specific question, right? You're asking what
Yep.
causes the people of Jannah to enter
Yep.
Jannah?
Yeah.
The answer of that is what they do.
Mm.
Okay, the answer of that is what they do. If you ask a specific question, why are we here? Why are we here? Why are we being tested? Okay, the specific answer for that in the Quran is to see which of you is best in action.
Mm.
Okay, when you ask how will judgment be on the day of judgment, okay, the answer to that is there's scales. What
Yeah.
happens with those scales? The good deeds are weighed, okay, and if they are heavy, you are saved. If they are light, okay, you're not. Okay, so
Yeah.
all revolves around deeds. Okay, when you say okay, even another verse in the Quran, تلكم الجنة التي أورثتموها بما كنتم تعملون. This Jannah, this is the Jannah which you have inherited because of what you used to do.
Yeah.
You inherited it by what you used to do. Okay, there is no thing of entered the Jannah or inherited because of what you used to believe. Okay, and the same thing for hellfire. Okay, now for hellfire you have takfurun, which is not the same as disbelief. Okay, kufr is not doesn't mean disbelief, right? So it just comes down to looking at what is certain. Okay, look at what is certain, explicit in the Quran. Okay, and then you will see that everything else will match towards it, will fall in line with it. There won't be any contradictions between it. Okay,
Okay.
so those kind of verses, if you look, you go back to them, right? All those verses which talk about iman and those who have faith, okay, and they are rewarded for that. They're not conditional verses. They're not things which make condition. Okay, and even in those verses, you will find the next verse or a few verses later will tell you that they entered. That those same people who had faith, they entered because of what they did. Okay. Okay, إنما تجزون ما كنتم تعملون, right? You're only being recompensed for what you used to do. Okay, it all comes down to that. And then there's the idea, of course, in the end that Iman itself is not, like we said, Iman is not about believing or disbelieving. Iman is voluntary. Okay, Iman is something which is voluntary. Belief, just when you talk about in the English word belief or disbelief, that's involuntary. You can't make yourself believe anything. Now you can make yourself just trust it or have faith in it. Okay, even though you see it, you think it's wrong, you will still trust. Okay, that's different. That's more like Iman, right? Right. The Iman, the faith, is just to put your trust in somebody else, in something else. Okay, to have that kind of faith. It's not about you can believe something is wrong, but you say trust me anyway. I think you're wrong here, but I think you're wrong, but I'm going to trust you on this, and I'll follow you. Okay, that's faith. That's faith. Okay, it's something voluntary which you do, right? In terms of the internally what you think is true or not true, we're not being tested for that. That's not why we're here. Okay, God is not testing to see who gets the right answers. Okay, like in a maths question, who got it right, who got it wrong. It's not that. It's not about being right or being wrong. It's about being a right person, right in yourself. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ, except he who comes to Allah with a sound heart. Okay, come back to Allah with a sound heart. So that's what I would say for that, right? And then of course there are many verses about this, right? لله ما في السماوات وما في الأرض ليجزي الذين أساءوا بما عملوا ويجزي الذين أحسنوا بالحسنى. Right? To God belongs what is in the heavens and on the earth, so that He may recompense those who did evil by what they did. ويجزي الذين أحسنوا بالحسنى, and recompense those who did good by goodness. And rhetorical question: هل جزاء الإحسان إلا الإحسان? is the reward of goodness anything other than goodness? Okay. Um, so that's what it comes down to. Funnily enough, one of the early narrations there is when the Prophet was asked, what is the best deed? He said, faith in God and His Messenger. Imanun billah. Right? So he called that a deed, an action,
Mm,
right? In that narration. Okay, because and there was then of course let's not forget that was one of the early arguments in early Islam. Okay,
mhm,
what is Iman? Okay, and
mhm.
so you have the ideas that people that said Iman is qawl wa amal. Okay, it's speech and action together. Okay, others would say no, it's this or that. So you had these discussions: is Iman an action, or is it just something, or is it just an i'tiqad in the mind, or is it just a belief in the mind? What is it? What is Iman? Okay, so people discussed this, and not everybody had the idea that people have now. When they think of Iman, they just think of belief, right? Um, so that's what I would say about those.
Yeah,
Hope that
sounds.
did that help? Did that help?
Yeah, no, it did. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, and yeah, I had the other question.
What was the other one? I forgot
On
now.
the God sealing their hearts or leading them astray, or
Oh
God
yes,
guides
yeah,
whom He
yeah,
wills and leads astray whom
yeah,
He wills. And
yeah.
so I will just exit the studio and continue listening in from the other side.
All right, okay. If you
Okay.
if you
Yeah.
if you want, it's fine. Yeah. When you exit the studio, I think it takes some time before you get to the other side, or you're already there. All
No,
right, okay.
I am already there.
Already there. All right, okay. Now I
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
remove you from here anyway.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So when it comes to that, God leading some astray, he said, um, God guides. For example, Allah says in the Quran, "Yahdi ilayhi man yunib." Okay, God guides to Himself the one who is sort of repentant or looks, okay, or who is turning towards Him. Okay, basically to cut to the chase, as they say, right? When somebody is continuously rejecting a guidance, okay, deliberately rejecting guidance over and over and over and over again, okay, and doing injustice with it and doing evil deeds, etc. Okay, eventually you come to a stage, okay, where when the person, it's obvious this person is never going to accept faith, okay, and beyond a certain amount of time, then it's now there's no justice in that person being guided anymore. Okay, it's gone. He's gone far out beyond all bounds, done so much crimes and stuff. Even despite having the guidance put in front of him over and over and over, just rejecting it and not caring about it, etc. Okay, so when there comes to a point where this person is going to be blocked from guidance anymore, God will seal his heart. Okay, because everybody's you're giving what you strive for. And ليس للإنسان إلا ما سعى. If you keep striving after misguidance, you keep striving after it, okay, knowingly seeing it, وأنتم تبصرون, right? Knowing it and seeing it, you keep on going after it again and again and again and again. Eventually, God gives it to you. This is what you want. This is what you get. Okay, your heart is sealed, and then at least you're able to enjoy the rest of your life, sort of, right? Your heart gets sealed. The person doesn't care about the next world or this, and he just goes into this dunya, okay, until he finishes from it, right? So the people say, for example, in the Quran, Allah misguides and shaitan misguides. No, shaitan misguides ibtida'an, in the beginning. Okay, he misguides somebody who could be this person could be guided, and shaitan misguides them. The person is searching for guidance, and shaitan misguides them. No, but the person who seeks misguidance and stays with it and continues with it, okay, he's creating himself in that kind of way. He's creating his own misguidance, right? You keep on going after it and again and again and again. Eventually, you're blinding and destroying your own self. يُهْلِكُونَ أَنفُسَهُم, right? You're destroying yourself, and that's what it means. Now, in the Quran, Allah talks about these kind of sort of like laws, these sunnahs, these laws of nature, that He does them. anything which Allah has put as a law in place, okay, He will say, I did it. Okay, I did it, right? When God talks about, for example, the birds flying, okay, ما يمسكهن إلا الرحمن. Nobody's holding, ما يمسكهن, nothing holds them except الرحمن, except the Almighty. The Allah is the one who's holding them. Well, what does it mean Allah is? It means Allah is holding because those laws which are there and they only remain active by Him. That's what's holding those birds up. Okay, even the whole universe is being held. Okay, because it's staying in existence because God is holding it in existence, right? Inna Allah yumsiku as-samawati wal ard an tazula. God is holding the heavens and the earth so that they don't vanish. Okay, if God stopped holding them, they would vanish into non-existence, right? When amsakuhuma min ahadin min ba'di, right? So God talks about so in the Quran. You have this. Okay, well, God will talk about things which are like a natural result of the laws which are around. That He is the one who did it. Okay, He did it. All right. So that's where it comes down. Another way in some of these verses, when you read it, you can read them as, Inna Allah yahdi man yasha, okay, wa yudillu man yasha. And usually when it's translated, it's translated as God misguides whom He wills, but you can just as equally read it as God misguides whoever wants it, whoever wills it, the person. So the He is not God, it's the person. Inna Allah yahdi man yasha wa yudillu man yasha. God guides whoever wants guidance, and He misguides whoever wants misguidance. Okay, Inna Allah yahdi man yasha wa yudillu man yasha. Okay, the man yasha, the one who wants it there, not Allah. It's not Allah willing it. Okay, God doesn't will for anybody to become guided or misguided. Okay, and then in those things, when it comes to the like I said, the people who go beyond all bounds, then yes, God seals their hearts. Okay, seals the hearts of somebody who it's no longer just for the person to be guided. Okay, لم يكن في هدايته عدل. Okay, there's no justice in this person being guided. Okay, he does this, numerous crimes, genocide, kills, does, oppressors, etc., 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 and then he gets guided, right? And all that time he's being called to guidance, and he refuses. Okay, and just continues in that kind of way. Ultimately, in the end, you'll be given what you're seeking, right? You've been given what you keep on choosing, right? Like that saying, it's circular but true. We become what we do, right? You become what you do. The more you choose guidance, the more you're giving to it. Okay, so الذين اهتدوا زادهم هدى. Those who take up guidance, God gives them more guidance. وإن الغفار لمن تاب وآمن ثم اهتدى. Right, and I am forgiven for the person who has faith and does good deeds and then gets guidance. Then is guidance. Right, so there's this divine guidance and there's a divine misguidance which comes after a person utilizes the guidance which they already have or follows the misguidance which is already in front of them. Okay, so if you have the guidance which you have in front of you, if you follow that, you will be given more guidance. Okay, you will find more guidance. Ultimately, you receive guidance from Allah Himself. Okay, divine guidance will come to you. And in the same way, in the opposite way, the person who continues to choose misguidance over and over and over again, okay, and then they will be given from God's misguidance. Their hearts will be sealed and they will be misguided. And then no matter what they, whenever they see the path of righteousness, they will not take it. And if you see the path of misrighteousness, they will take that, as one of the verses says. Okay, so I hope that covers that as best I could for now anyway, tired as I am. There's one other thing that actually I wanted to mention because I brought this part of the verse, so I wouldn't forget it. What you mentioned about traveling to to Germany, from Kenya to Germany, and just seeing that difference. This is part of what this verse is saying, right? أَفَلَمْ يَسِيرُوا فِي الْأَرْضِ فتكون لهم قلوب يعقلون بها. Why is that? Why would traveling through the earth give you hearts with which you can do aql? Because it's about tying things together. When you're living in your own land, okay, you know how everything is now, right? Like if you're in Kenya, you know how the people think, how everything is. You're used to it, okay? You're used to it, all right? Then you go travel to Germany or somewhere else, a completely different place, okay? And you have to. It gives your heart the faculty, the ability to tie things together. You're able to tie things that you see there with things that you see back home. Okay, you start to make those connections. Okay, this sort of transcendent, being able to make those leaps, those ties between one world and another world. And so, if you're able to do that between two worlds here in this earth, okay, you start to become more open to be able to make those ties between this lower world and the transcendent world in terms of the moral, what is moral and immoral. Okay, and also you start to see it. Okay, you start to see things that you looked at in your own country. You considered them immoral. You go over there and you find that people are engaged in them, and it's not really a huge evil. Okay, or you will see things which people are engaged in over there and which are a huge evil over there, and they're just doing it. And then you see how, compared to your own country, people are not doing that, and how they're safe from it. And so now you are able to make the aql between that morality and the higher transcendent. Why it's a good thing for this to be, for this feature of your own country to be as it is. Okay, it's actually a moral thing. Okay, because when you look over there, you find that it's gone. Okay, so you can start to tie things together like that. So that's why traveling and being, it opens up the heart for aql. Okay, أفلم يسيروا في الأرض فتكون لهم قلوب يعقلون بها. Okay, will they not travel through the earth so that they may have hearts with which to aql, with which to tie, يعقلون, to intellectual, reason with. I mean, what else are we going to say in English, right? Reason with, or to I mean, I could just translate this to tie with, right? But it doesn't really roll off the tongue in English, does it? All right. Okay, I think that's basically it. There's one comment here I've highlighted. Let's get back to it. This is a good definition of what aql, heart is. Well, again, aql, yes, aql is in the heart. It's a feature of the heart which allows you to be able to see and connect things together. Okay, to connect things. So it's within the heart, and so is fiqh. So is understanding. As that verse says. So you have this kind of understanding, and this and the sight which allows you to have that understanding and be able to tie things together. But yes, so this is a good definition of what aql, heart, is as it is now. Has that universal aspect to it, unlike a fu'ad, mind, wherein different individuals may have different levels of intellect. Yes, exactly. So that's something that I wanted to talk about, but we'll leave that for next time. Fu'ad in the Qur'an seems to be the intellect, not the intellect, sorry, the analytical mind. Okay, it's to be able to see things without, which is why you have it in the Quran, in the Sam' wal Basar wal Fu'ad, kullu ulaika kana anhu mas'ula. Truly the hearing and the sight and the Fu'ad, okay, the Fu'ad, okay, these are all means of perception. Okay, being able to perceive things. Okay, so the Fu'ad is that there's the way that being able to sort of intellectually perceive things just normally, and it's not to be able to see or hear. It doesn't. It's not something which takes you to guidance or misguidance, right? In the same way, just thinking, be able to just the process of being able to think. Okay, analytically, okay, it can be used for good or for bad, right? So the fuad is, I think, the mind. And you have some other verses about that, right? And God talks about using those properly. Okay, إن السمع والبصر هو الذي جعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة قليلا ما تشكرون. He's the one who gave you the hearing and the sight and the أفئدة, the minds, how little you use them. Okay, when it talks about shukr in the Quran, it's talking about using them. All right. So I think that's about it for now. I don't think we have anybody else with us. I know what the chat says. Assalamu alaikum. Takla was Andriana, of course, with the new screen name. Okay, Assalamu alaikum. I guess we'll stop it there. And regarding the reaction videos, I still need to make a follow-up, the part 2. If anybody's seen my first reaction video, I'm going to do a follow-up for that. There's also a video I want to make entitled what the Qur'an is and what the Qur'an is not. But I'll see when I can get those done. As for these, of course, these live streams, I'll see you again in, inshallah, a couple more weeks. So not next week, the week after. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.